Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. On today's video I've got my Lenovo ThinkPad T440s. I've had this thing on the channel before, and this machine and I've got a lot of history as I originally sold it to the client that ended up disposing of it. It has a damaged screen when I got the thing, which I've since replaced, but the fan has died in there, and also the touchpad, well, on this first series of 440s until the 450s, they've got a pretty awful trackpad. The machine itself actually still works fine, but I had the opportunity on doing some upgrades, and the fan's been getting progressively worse. So here's the issue that I'm talking about, this all-in-one touchpad design that Lenovo went to for this first generation of this series. It's basically one big button, very clunky and not very nice to use. And to make matters worse, the fan has died in the laptop. It's been more than once since I've actually gone ahead and fixed the fan and stuff in the laptop, but for about 40 NZ dollars I got a whole another complete, supposedly dead T450s laptop, and these actually share a lot of the same components but have a much better trackpad design, as well as an OEM non-knockoff screen and a fan that works. So for about 20 USD I picked this thing up. Surprisingly, it does turn on, but the BIOS is locked, as well as the keyboard apparently has some faults and some battery faults, no hard drive and stuff like that. But it gave me an idea that I wanted to revive the T440 because I actually really like that machine. It's got a really good keyboard. It's just got a few little bits and pieces that let it down, like the trackpad and the screen. Just, you know, aftermarket quality with those screens. Plus it's always nice to have some spares. So basically I set about stripping down my T440, which is not too bad, and I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll gut it apart and, you know, put in the parts from the donor laptop and basically make a pretty decent machine. The disassembly of these is actually not too bad. There's heaps of documentation online, but I've been into this machine probably half a dozen times at this point. I've got a bunch of memory upgrades, hard drive upgrades and things like that packed into it, as well as a 4G modem card. I think I put a new CMOS battery in there as well. These machines are equipped with two batteries on board, one external one that can be removed, as well as an internal big jobby, which unfortunately you have to take the lid off to get to. It covers a lot of the track point ribbon cables that you see me disconnecting here. Hard drive, of course, is no M.2 in this generation of machine, or M-SATA or anything weird like that. So we've just got a standard SATA hard drive, and I've got a Samsung branded SSD, which actually came out of an old Huawei Enterprise Blade server that I decommissioned. The thing was packed with 4 blades worth of these drives. So yeah, easy enough to do with the Wi-Fi tenors here. They're all color coded, which is quite nice, and if you're ever in doubt, just take a photo, which I ended up doing at one stage. Bunch of little ribbon cables and connectors and things around the board that you will need to disconnect. Not too bad, just got to be gentle. Of course I'm using a metal screwdriver, which is a big no-no, but I'm pretty gentle, so got away with it for now. As I said, the disassembly of these is actually pretty easy. To remove the screens, it's really just these display cables, USB connection for the webcam, power, antennas, and then there's 3 screws on the left and 2 on the right, and the whole screen. I find it actually easier just to open the laptop up like a clamshell. Seems to open the hinges up and then you can sneak out the base plate. But yeah, really actually quite easy. The one thing which you will see later in the video is I didn't swap the bezels, and that's because I don't have any more adhesive. For me personally, that doesn't matter, but just a little bit of a side note that if you want to swap the bezels, you will need some double-sided tape. To remove the cable, which has to be done in order to get to the, or to take the motherboard out in order to access the other screws for the trackpad, yeah, the keyboard does have to come out. And there's 2 little things either side of the plastic bezel around the keyboard that you slide forward. Lenovo actually make a special screwdriver, which I do have somewhere but I couldn't find, which has got a plastic flat head on one side and a really thin Phillips or whatever it is screwdriver on the other. But just a really thin screwdriver will get in between the keycaps to undo those screws, which I'll show you in a moment. But yeah, as I said, it's easy enough just to unhinge the laptop itself, and then the whole base basically just comes out. So you just get the cables out of the way. Of course, the antenna cables always get caught up in between the channel, between the board and the base. But yeah, there you go, she's all free, and that's including the keyboard in there too. And of course, here's my cheap aftermarket screen, which has done very well for me, but the viewing angles are crap and the colors are crap, and you know, an OEM screen is always better if you can get one. As I said, keyboard removal isn't too bad, just need a really thin screwdriver to get to these screws that you can see sticking out there. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it wasn't actually too bad. And at this point now you can actually take all the screws out for the mainboard or motherboard, and the whole thing just comes off, allowing you access basically to all the screws for the touchpad. At this point now, I've got the donor machine out on the bench and I'm just disassembling it. Yeah, I mean, as I said, the machine that I bought does technically work, but it does have some issues, so I'm kind of trying to make one revived machine out of parts from the other, which means I've also got some spare parts kicking around, which is always nice and handy. Batteries, even the main board. I mean, technically, even though it's BIOS locked, it does still post, so I could technically get a hard drive in there. But whether or not I could adjust any of the settings, that's going to be a pretty big major. Here's the touchpad. As you can see, it's got little buttons on the top, which I prefer because I actually use these touchpads double-handed. I point with my right hand around the touchpad and then I click the left mouse button with my left hand. So a little bit odd, but with these ThinkPads I've really become accustomed to the track point mouse buttons. The nub, I've kind of lost my touch with it. I used to have a Toshiba that I used on a daily basis with, and it just had the nub, and I managed to get around that not too bad. But yeah, kind of lost my touch with the nubs and ended up just using the buttons there, which I actually prefer. But yeah, Once again, there's just 4 screws holding in the track point and a ribbon cable, which is normally adhered to the bottom of the shell, so it's not too bad. Now that I've screwed the new track point touchpad in, I can just put the original motherboard back in. This is my original shell to all the ribbon cables and things like that. Just keeping it easy, and I've already got the new screen. As you can see, they're screwed in, so it's just a matter of reconnecting and reversing everything. At this point now, I'm just doing the final modification, which is getting the heatsink and fan swapped over. So I'm going to just swap it all over as one whole unit, because thankfully with the T440s series and 450 and 460s series, they all tend to use the same cooler unless you got the discrete graphics. In that case, you got a different heatsink design, and I believe that might only be a P series or non-alphabetical series. So yeah, that's pretty much just remove the donor part, clean it up, fresh thermal paste. And yes, I am going for gold here. I am not pre-testing anything before putting the machine back together, because I'm being, well, confident and probably stupid, but yeah, we'll see how that goes for me. The reason I did this instead of just buying a fan is a fan for this machine is about 30 New Zealand dollars. So for an extra 10, I get an upgraded touchpad plus spares, batteries, cards, and a better display. So yeah, I think it was actually pretty good value picking up a sort of parts or donor unit, and that means that I can keep this machine going, and I've got some spares for it. But yeah, as I said, first power on works good as gold. Keyboard and mouse actually do work too. I'm doing my fingers crossed, but at this point I already know that it all works, and it has been working a treat. So yeah, gonna load up Linux here. I've got Kubuntu as the distro of choice I'm using for the moment. It seems to be pretty easy to use out of the box, but testing the touchpad works pretty good, and I can log in with all my keycaps. Here's the machine all wrapped up, all cleaned up as well. The display cleaned up really nicely too, and yeah, it's lives to die another day. This machine's been with me for 8 years and continues to be of great service. Alright everyone, I'll leave you to your day. Thanks for watching, and catch you guys in the next video. Alright, bye for now.